We have a king who cares for people. We have a king who cares for people. We have a king who cares for people. And his name is Jesus. On the Tuesday, well, we could be here a long time on the Tuesday. Mark's Gospel gives us the most clear time indications, and his account of the Tuesday begins with a debate about authority, followed by the parable of the tenants, controversy about the poll tax and the resurrection, discussion about the greatest commandment, the story of the widow's offering, and predictions of the destruction of the temple. If this wasn't busy enough, Matthew adds other famous parables, including the sheep and the goats, and also a litany of woes. So Tuesday, in both Matthew and Mark, is longer than Thursday and Friday put together. Tuesday does not have quite the same continuity of the Passion story, but in terms of the number of verses stands out as the longest day. But you are unlikely to hear this material read continuously in a church. More often we hear it in small chunks and at a different point of the year. So we both slice it up and we separate it from its context. That is, Jesus visiting the Temple Mount as his final act of public ministry before the Passion story events. In everything that happens on the Tuesday, Jesus is showing his care for people. As Fred Card writes in the hymn, "We have a king who rides a donkey," which we are using by kind permission of Stainer and Bell Limited, London. We haven't time to read everything today, but perhaps you might like to do that yourself later, starting from Palm Sunday and going up to the Last Supper. But for me, one short episode sums up the whole account, and that is the story often known as the widow's mite. Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." In Mark's accounts, these are the last words Jesus says within the temple courts. We usually understand this comment on the gift of a particularly poor woman to shed light on the significance in God's sight of any seemingly small gift offered from a lack rather than plenty. And there is no doubt that God does not look on human giving and receiving in the same way that we do. But in the context of all Jesus' words on the Tuesday, and in the Gospels as a whole, this is not only about one woman's sacrificial gift, but about a system that is requiring someone to give up everything that they have to live on. For this particular woman, what is causing her to give beyond her means is the expectation of putting something in the temple offering box. Although this might appear to be a religious or moral expectation, in a world where there was no boundary between sacred and secular, it is in fact a civic duty. But what systems are there today which expect people to contribute beyond their resources in our country and around the world? In these trying times, we should remember the most vulnerable. It is fantastic that as a society we are doing many things to help each other, but we should possibly also be using the time to think about how we can change systems to minimize any expectation or even coercion for the people with the least to contribute what they do not actually have. Jesus, the King, is risen. Jesus, the King, is risen. Jesus, the King, is risen early in the morning.